Hi, I'm Cody Alexander with MatchQuarters. Welcome to another ArtofX show. Today, we're going to talk about off-ball sims and the creation of natural cross dogs within that. Going to take a look at the Trojans, kind of explain why I looked at them and some other trends that I'm seeing at the college level, and a little bit at the NFL level, something to look forward to at the lower levels as well. So let's dig in. First off, before we begin, let's talk about what is a creeper and what is a sim. Sometimes they can be synonymous depending on who you're talking to. Other times you're going to find that they are categorized in different sets. The way that I look at it, a creeper is a replacement pressure. I'm sending an off-ball defender to the B or the C gap, so I'm attacking the edge of the box, and I'm going to drop away the D end. Now, can you have a creeper with a nose drop in? Sure. I don't know how many out there would like to drop a nose. I know that there are times when teams have done that. But in terms of just like what is a pure creeper, off-ball defender attacking the B and C gap, we're going to drop away, which is normally going to be the D end. And it's an odd spacing fit, meaning that we're going to plug the B gap. So the way that this fits in terms of if you were just going to put this on a whiteboard and you were going to draw it up, it would be the exact same way if you were running like the tight front. Okay, so we're clogging both B gaps, but we're doing it with pressure. A simulated pressure. There's two types of simulated pressures. You have a presentation sim. So I'm going to present 5+ on the line of scrimmage, yet I'm only going to rush 4. Now, within that presentation sim, you can have inserts. This isn't just, hey, it kind of like what I've talked about before on MatchQuarters, the Miami tag pressures where we're going to put 6 to 7 guys on the line, but we're only going to rush 4 because we're going to kind of tag and drop off of the pass pro. What I'm talking about here is we're presenting either a 5-0 front, meaning that we have 5 on the line, nobody behind, or we have 6 defenders on the line. We're showing that we're going to blitz, right? But we're only going to rush 4, and you can add some of these creeper elements to it. So you can kind of have a mixture of both. That is a presentation sim. Those became really popular a couple years ago with kind of the NFL sim pressures that a lot of people started talking about coming from the Saban tree. An off-ball sim is attack the A gap with a box backer, meaning a linebacker that's inside the tackles, and we're going to drop a D in. Now, these pressures that I've talked about before, Allen, or what Aranda calls mechs, these are solo dog pressures, meaning that there's only one linebacker going. You can also have what I call manning, or in the Aranda term, belly, where you're going to send both linebackers, and you can create natural cross dogs within the box. So that's how I define it. If you talk to some other people, if they're using a box backer, that's a simulated pressure. If they're using an overhang, that's a creeper. So there's different ways that you can do this, but just to simplify it as much as possible, a creeper is a replacement pressure. You have presentation sims showing 5 or more on the line and only rushing 4, and then off-ball sims, which gives you a traditional presentation pre-snap, and then you send a box backer into an internal gap, mainly the A gap. Okay. And everything here can create natural cross dogs, which is if you listen in the Nike Coach of the Year clinic with Schumann, who's now the defensive coordinator at Georgia, and they talked about what they were trying to do last year in 2021. One of the big things that he talked about was creating these natural cross dogs and layering the fits of the defense and using that D line that they had to their advantage. So let's go into let's dive into what is a creeper. So one of the most famous ones is attacking the weak side or the boundary, which would be Brady. Okay. And so what you have presentation wise is just a simple overfront. Okay, so we're just going to get into an overfront. If it's a 2x2 set, you're going to set the front to the field away from the pressure. So remember, it's Brady, it's a B. We're going to send somebody through the B gap and that's going to be our will linebacker. Okay, so the D end to the blitz side is going to cop, means contain pressure. You can alert him to peel. You can have it. And I've seen this before in some of these situations where the coach that's running these plays kind of a balance rule with these DNs that whoever has the back on their side can peel. So you can have that. Remember, you're having a B gap pressure. You're probably going to get the tackle kicking to the D end who's going to cop, so he can work that cop and then peel with the D end if you want. Now, the one thing about this is your stack backer. Okay, if the back is to the pressure side and your stack backer is away, right, you can have a peel tag for your DN. That's where it's advantageous. If the stack backer is to the running back side, well, he's in charge of the running back anyway. He can peel with it. You can kind of give a lock call to your DN. No matter what, pressure side, that defensive end is going to box because you want to box everything. You want to send everything back into that pressure. Okay, so that's kind of your peel rules and your D end rules away from the boundary. So your field D end, right, and your 3-tech, they're going to be what I call, they're going to play wedge. Okay, and this is a term that I use to teach this. We're going to wedge the offensive tackle. Okay, the 3-tech and the D end are both going to step to the tackle. If the tackle fans to the D end, he's gonna wrap and drop. Okay, this is a way to get in extra numbers in box, especially in early downs. When we're talking about off-ball creepers and off-ball simulated pressures, the whole point is, hey, we're doing this on kind of these normal downs, right? So how can we get numbers into the box, especially if they're going to run? So if the tackle fans, that DN's going to stab and drop, right? He wants to engage and drop. He could fold back into the box, kind of pulling the chain, because remember, we got that stack backer who's going to create it. Remember, we're creating that natural cross action with the linebackers. Nose is going to try and cross face. I call that a face technique. We're going to try and cross face with the center. Now, if the tackle down blocks, that DN now is getting a run read. So he can now surf and get his eyes to the quarterback. This is really good if you have long DNs. Have him sit on the edge of that box and just get in the quarterback's window. Because a lot of times, where's that pressure coming? If you get a down block, they're trying to get everybody cleared and washed, and then that quarterback a clear window. And so he's expecting a puller. He's expecting some sort of RPO action off of it if he has the back to him. So that's kind of just overall kind of just a few things to look for in these creepers. Remember, creepers are replacements. So in this one, we're sending the linebacker to the boundary through the B gap, but then we're dropping the field defensive end. So that's kind of how we get that seesaw action, and that's why it's called a replacement pressure. Let's explain an off-ball sim. So we have the same setup. Okay, we're going to send the inside linebacker to the 3 technique. And the reason why I like sending it to the 3 technique, and I know other coaches that do that, some will send it to the nose side. It just depends on how well your nose is. If you have a really good nose and you know he can cop through the B gap, meaning that he can get to contain through the B gap, then by all means, drop the D end to it. Maybe you drop the D end away from the pressure side. So whichever inside linebacker you're going to take, you drop the D end away and kind of keep that creeper mentality with it. So again, let's go through an off-ball sim. So the presentation, again, you can have them in an over front. You can have them, if it's 2x2, normally like to set it to the field. So you're giving a traditional presentation again. With the running back, again, you can have a peel rule where if I'm the DN to the running back, we peel. Because remember, you're getting a cop action, right, through the nose. The nose is going to work through the B gap, or you are then again on the wedge side, which you're going to get a cop through the B gap anyway. So if you have some DNs that are really athletic and they're smart enough to understand, hey, back placement, I've got the peel if he's on my side. That just really alleviates a lot for your inside linebacker. If you're more or less, no, I want him ball fitting, I want him attached to the running back. If the running back's on my side, you lock the D end. If the running back's away from my side as the box backer, then I give a peel alert, right? So you have that communication. So again, the D end, how I do it with the 3 technique, we're going to send the inside linebacker to the 3 technique. Okay, he's going to run what's called a cross technique. And so this pressure is what I call Allen, or Aranda calls it Mex. Okay, because we're hitting the middle. It's a middle cross, right? So I prefer to teach a cross technique instead of what Aranda does with the V-Tech. And all the V-Tech means is we're reading the V of the neck. Okay, we've all heard read the V of the neck. If you've ever played football at all, you read the V of the neck. That's where he's going to tell you, that's the departure. I like a cross technique because it force fits that guy. Basically, you're going to get to the opposite A gap unless you just absolutely cannot, and then you're going to pin the hip and climb. That means the center completely overcommitted to that nose, and that A gap is so wide open that you don't have it. You don't have a choice but to run through it. And I've had this happen in a game where they're playing kind of, it's zone scheme, but it's more man blocking. The center just chases that nose as he's working to the B gap. We call that a knob nose to B, and he just overcommits. You have the other guard who's chasing that 3-tech who's copying through the B gap, and it just leaves this A gap wide open, and the Mike linebacker gets a run through. The other reason why I like a cross technique is if it is a true drop back pass and you kind of get that center, and what we're doing is floating the center, meaning that we are putting him in a situation where there's nobody really on him. We don't have a G, we don't have a shade, we don't have a head up. He's got to decide which way he's going to go, right? And so if he panics and he just squats, then at least that gives my inside linebacker a place to go. Because I've ran into this when you're teaching this technique, and you're like, okay, I can do the V technique. And if it's really hard for your younger players who haven't had the experience to kind of understand shoulder tilt, or is he flashing his hands to me? Sometimes you get that center and he's just floating. He's literally just squatting down in there, and he's just waiting for the first person that comes. Well, remember, we have a wedge technique on the 3 technique side. So that drop D end is going to be able to fold into that near A gap if we need it. And so, or you're getting that cross dog action from the stack backer. So to me, go ahead and cross that guy. Just give him a cross. And that's why we call it a cross technique. So to me, that to me is kind of how we get to this place, right? The cross technique is basically, I'm reading the center's path. To me, I'm going to cross his face. Away, I'm going to backdoor. But with that away technique, he's got to be to the point where he's really showed me his backside, and then I'm going to get it. So let's make sure that we understand what the whole concept here is. What we're trying to get to is odd spacing with an even front. All right, let's talk about third down or 5-0 sims explained. So these are presentation simulated pressures. Okay, one of my favorite is the Bears path, which is an internal A gap pressure, and we do it from an odd front, right? We're going to get somebody stacked on the nose, we're going to get somebody on the guards, and we're going to get 2 DNs. So it's essentially a bear front, right? And then we've got whoever's in charge of the running back is stacked in the middle of it. So we've got our 5 defenders on the line of scrimmage. We've got an off-ball defender blitzing, right? And then we're going to drop an on-ball defender. Now, again, you have this already built within your creeper and sim structure, right? So whoever has the D end is peel, whoever has the running back is peel, whoever is the D end away from the running back is the dropper. And so you can communicate this so that you can always get the correct drop, because in Bears, you're going to get that cop B to C. So you're going to get that contained pressure through the B gaps anyway with your 3 techniques. So why, if you're already getting contained pressure and they're reading it, why would you not already have that to where you can have that action from your 2 edge rushers? So those are the 3, again, before we go any further: creepers, off-ball simulated pressures, and then your third down on-ball simulated pressures. Normally, you use your on-ball sims, your presentation sims on third down when you're trying to manipulate pass pro. It's an obvious pass down. I like off-ball sims because it's a traditional look on early downs. So you're getting that traditional, they're in an even front. So we know exactly what we're going to get. I like off-ball simulated pressures versus zone schemes, because that's what the tight front was designed to eliminate, right? Is zone runs. I like creepers versus gap schemes, or when you know that they're going to run a pass and you can kind of get some slide lock because you're attacking that B gap, right? Or you're attacking that C gap. Now, I prefer C gap against zone. Let's attack the edges versus zone because that's where we're getting the cutback or we're trying to get it to roll off the table. I prefer B gap creepers when you're playing gap centric teams because you're either chasing the polar or you're punching the polar depending on the run action, and you kind of get either I don't mind if we punch the pole and I don't mind if we can get the run through and chase the polar. So I like B gaps for gap scheme and I like C gap for zone, simulated pressures for zone, and then third down presentation, you're attacking the pass pro. Early down sims, okay? And this is kind of essentially what we're going to be talking about. I think they're really, really good. Apply internal pressure while keeping coverage integrity. So you're getting one, if it's pass, I'm getting pressure in the face of the quarterback. I'm forcing the running back to track the linebacker that's working into the box, right? We're using traditional alignments, over, under, tight. You can run it from any front. That's the other nice thing about these. These are true utility pressures, okay? What I call utility. You can use them on any down and you can use them with any front. Use box backers to attack the A gap, simulating a 5-man pressure, or if you're sending both, we're simulating a 6-man pressure. The whole goal is to try and get that running back to stay in so that our coverage distribution is 7/4. Right? Because you can only have 5 offensive players go out for passes. So I want my 7 defenders to be able to take 4. It's just simple math. I would rather have +3 over +2. Creepers can be considered sims when bringing box backers. So if you are, for instance, the Kirby Smart talks about this all the time. They call them simulators, right? So they're not necessarily calling them creepers. So when they're talking to the media or they're talking through some of these things, you're going to hear simulated pressures. That's a good example about it. But if you want to break these down, like if you talk to the Aranda crew, they're going to have creepers and they're going to have their sims. Okay, some people call them replacement pressures, especially if you are a odd front kind of lineage and odd front tree where your defenses come from. You're probably calling them replacement pressures because you're bringing one person and then replacing that person in coverage with another from the opposite end. Great on early downs and attacking zone schemes. Again, gap pressure, or if they're pin and pull and they're trying to get to the edge and you're sending an A gap pressure, you want to try and get that run through as quickly as possible. And sometimes just that departure angle, it's just not there, right? So the simulated pressures for me, off ball, early down simulated pressures are really good versus zone because you're kind of containing everything on the edges and you're funneling it into that A gap in the middle of the box. So I studied the Trojans and I'll explain why. Only trailed West Virginia in sim usage. West Virginia and Troy had a massive amount in terms of, we're talking like 77, 80% in simulated usage. So anytime somebody is just off the spectrum on that end, on just one side, I'm like, I want to know why they're doing that, right? So defense was top 3rd in EPA per play and rush EPA. Now, they weren't that efficient, but they were still in the top half of college football. So efficiency data and EPA data are a little bit different. It's about how many are you earning or losing points per play on EPA. And then efficiency data to me is overall looking at big picture, how efficient are you throughout the game? Their defensive coordinator from last year, Brandon Hall, is now currently safeties coach for OU, working again for his mentor in Brent Venables. Great look at how modern defenses are attacking with volume. Okay, so anytime that I see that high number, they're using a lot of volume. I want to know, one, what's the value and why are they doing that? Favorite sims that they used was the Allen and Mex. So going back prior to it, we've got a 4-down presentation and we're attacking the A gap with the cross technique, right? It floats the center, which I like. If you know that the center is a weak point on there, then we want to float him, even if because I want him to either latch on to the nose, because he's just going to go with the first thing that he's going to do. Well, if he does that, then I've got an A gap run through, right? Because I've got a 3 technique. Even if the guard works that way, I'm going to get somebody to come free. Okay, I've got that internal pressure going right now. But even if the center is good, I'm manipulating the fit anyway. I'm going to cross face. Even if that center is really good and he's patient and he's sitting there, I'm going to cross his face and he's going to have to eat that rush anyway. He's not going to let that guy go. So I'm still manipulating him, whether he's not very good and he's just going to sit there and have no idea what he's doing, or he chases, or if he's a really good center, we're going to manipulate that thing anyway. And that Mike's going to be able to run through that opposite A gap, and we're either going to get the stack from the will or we're going to get the fold from the DN. Okay, so insert runs a cross technique, also kind of known as a V-tech. If you're reading it, it's a V-tech, reading the V of the neck of the center. Read intentions or autocross. I prefer an autocross just because it makes everything just simpler and automatic for the kids. D into the 3-tech is a dropper. You can drop to the nose. There are teams that do that. Other inside linebacker will stack the insert and track the back. Okay, and then you can do peel rules, or you can just play it depending on it. If the back is to the stack, he's got him. If the back is away, then you have a D end who's dropping anyway, and you can drop the D end, or you can peel the D end that's dropping, and the will's going to stack anyway. Creating a quasi cross dog action, which is essentially what you want. You want to layer your attack. Insert second folder, right? Because it's usually that second folder that's going to be the one that comes free. Usually the insert, the O-line panics and they end up taking them. Okay, can adjust coverage for down and distance. One of the things that especially with this Allen pressure is Kane Womack, who's now at South Alabama. If you go back to when Indiana had that really good defense a couple years ago, they literally just ran Allen. That was like the only thing that they ran, but they did different coverages. Add tag to make it a 5-man pressure. So just kind of add it. What we did is, Buffalo doesn't have a basketball team, but Toronto's right there across there. So we just would say the Raptors. So we would have Allen, and then we would have Raptors for a 5-man pressure. Great versus zone runs. Key to an A-gap progression, meaning that you can run this. You can run kind of your 5-man cross dogs, and then you could run a 6-man cross dog. So once you teach Allen, you can kind of go through it because everything's already there. You can have a 5-man pressure tag where you are keeping the D end on the line, right? And then you can have a 6-man pressure where now you get an actual 6-man cross dog hot. Right? Or you can have different 5-man pressures where you're running the cross dog and the DN still dropping. So it's all predicated on what your kids can handle and how many pressures you want to carry. I like it, again, finally, pressure directly in the quarterback's face. So it's great versus play action pass. It's great versus drop back, and it's great versus zone runs on first down. Okay. Troy allowed the other DN to fold. So they would actually do a read pop. And they would get in the kind of this, I call it a deuce front. So you have 5 and 2s, and then you can kind of get that natural step. Both those interior D linemen on the guards are stepping out, and you can almost wedge both those DNs. And they were allowing the DN to fold. So not that you have a DN that's dropping, and then you have a DN that's reading it for a read pop. So it's great versus quad sets where anytime you have 4 to a side and they're going to zone away from that 4-man side because they're either trying to do an RPO snag, or they've got stack backers that way, and they're kind of running different games with that, and they're trying to read the tight end. What you can do is load the zone to the backside and then get your read pop. So that way you have your numbers on the inside. So utilized an under front, and it also allows the inside linebacker to drop faster. Because if you know that, hey, I got read pop, I don't necessarily have to be the stack that fast. I get pass read, I can drop. Again, go back to it, utilize an under front. Again, all of these, like with Troy, they used an under front. I demonstrated an over front. You can run this also from a tight front. You can run this from almost any front that you want, as long as your kids can get there. So teach the DN to read the offensive tackle to gain numbers. That's what I like. I like it because, yes, it's a 4-man simulated pressure, but if I've got the stack backer and I've got the DN reading the run, now all of a sudden I have that 6-man box, and I'm not just getting 4 to the run. I'm not just having guys just drop out. I think that's the other thing when people try and reverse engineer this, and they're like, okay, well, I've never really run this, I want to run this, is that they will drop that DN too quickly. let him read, run, pass before he drops. If it's a kick step and that guy's fanning out to me, then drop and get your eyes to the quarterback. But if it looks like a run action, especially on early downs with so much RPO and play action on first down now, let him sit there and just get in the field of vision of the quarterback. Okay. The other one that they liked, which is an extension of this, is what I call Mahomes. If you pay attention to the saving system, this is Mars, right? The mic to the A gap, and then you're getting the D end wrapping around. It's more direct than Allen, and you get the fold of the D end. Okay. Now, all of these can be run with any coverage that you want behind it. So you get quick pressure forces, the center and guard tandem to handle it, right? What are you going to do with the nose working to the B gap? And what are you going to do with that internal pressure in the face of the A gap right now? Okay. What ends up happening is that center guard tandem work with the pressure, right? The nose is going away. The internal linebacker is blitzing the A gap. So you eat the guard in the center. You've got the three technique or the interior D lineman away working through the B gap. Well, he's working through the guard to collapse the B gap. Well, now you've got that guard on that. Again, we're creating open gaps in the A gap. Now I have a DN that's looping to the other A gap, right? And so it looks free. And then the next thing you know, you're meeting a DN right now in the A gap. So even versus run, you want to kind of funnel everything through these A gaps and these sim pressures. Okay. We don't want anything outside. Right. So these sim pressures, we want everything funneled to the pressure. We're pressuring inside. So we want everything funneled to the pressure. This is primarily a third down pressure, but if you are getting a lot of 5 outlooks, or you're getting a lot of 10 personnel, or the tight end is constantly attacking the flat, so it's really just a maybe 6-man protection with the back, these are really good versus light personnel. So Mahomes, Mars, really good. If you're an Aranda system guy, this is Marino or Aikman, depending on if you want to attack to the A back or away. And here's the other thing with this pressure is you can attack the running back side, or you can attack away from the running back side. It really doesn't matter. It's kind of on preference and what you want. So for instance, if it's zone centric, you can actually do the kind of the fold or the read pop side away from the running back to really get that running back to cut back right into that DN. So it depends on what you want. Again, this is a third down for primarily blitz. And so if you're doing it, it's usually based on protection. But if you're going to say, look, we're playing a 10 personnel team, or we're playing a kind of, even though they have a tight end, he's really kind of a glorified receiver. He's just a big slot, right? So they're kind of sending him out to the flat. They're not really running a lot of gap scheme with it. This is a great pressure for teams like that because it allows you to keep coverage integrity, right? You're only sending 4, but it also is still giving you those odd spacing fits versus these zone teams. So something to think about if you're drawing these up is like, hey, I kind of would like to fold away from the back instead. So to wrap up everything, try to combine best practice pass plus read stunts. So anytime you can get that on early downs where that DN isn't just stabbing and dropping and you're getting those read stunts, I feel like that's where you can really get after these guys, especially too if your DNs are really good and they kind of understand where the back placement is and you're teaching that and they're aware of that, of, hey, I'm on the peel side, hey, I'm on the drop side. And then what that allows you to do is really let those interior linemen or those interior linebackers really focus on their job. They don't necessarily have to worry about peeling. I call it an option defense, right? If the offense is optioning what we're doing on defense, why can't I option the offense and what we're doing? Create natural cross dogs, which creates layers in your run fits, right? Sims maintain cover structures. Creepers maintains cover structure. It takes the fire zone principle of Arnsparger, these safe pressures, and it makes them even safer. This is like using a scalpel instead of a knife, right? Okay. Yeah. Sometimes when you blitz, it's like using a machete. It's really messy. Hopefully we hit home. What we're doing here is pinpoint accuracy. We're attacking the offense because we know what they're running. We know what their pass pro is, and we're attacking that. It attacks run blocking and pass pro, and then utility pressures make it easier to teach, because once you've taught these movements, you can then install any pressure A gap to C gap, and your kids already know what they're doing. So again, I love this. I think that this is a trend that's going to start trickling down. You see this at the college level a ton. It's becoming more and more prevalent. It started a couple of years ago. People started talking about these third down simulated pressures. Now we're to the point where everybody's using them on every down. So they've become these utility pressures that allow this to do this. Again, I use the term passive pressure because I kind of like that oxymoron of we're bringing pressure, but we're very passive in terms of the coverage structure. And I think as the passing the ball becomes more established at every level of the game, that in these quarterbacks have become better and better because of 7-on-7 and because of the rules that are there for the offense. Here's the thing about defense. We're reactionary, and most people don't like change. So it's always kind of the defensive coaches that are always complaining about all the rules. Well, here's the thing. If we already have within our tools to kind of counter the offense and play them at their own game, why are we not using this? So here's an example of how defense can evolve to match the offense and start bringing the fight to them. Thanks for joining me on another edition of the ArtofX show. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe to the MatchQuarters Substack. You can find everything that I've ever written on MatchQuarters.com under the archive link. Make sure to get any templates that you need for the upcoming season through the template shop. Follow me on Twitter at _coach_A and follow the hashtag ArtofX. Thank you.